Bear with the audio and any background noise we encounter later. Let's get started right away. I think this is going to work. What are the permanent effects of child abuse? Do you have any idea? Just a random Google search, first time I've ever done that. Let's see. What are the long-term effects of abuse? Okay. Physical health problems, mental health problems, suicidal behavior, eating disorders and obesity, alcohol and substance abuse problems, aggression, violence, and criminal behavior, re-victimization, intergenerational transmission of abuse and neglect. Intergenerational transmission of abuse and neglect. Interesting. Okay, I'm not going to argue with that. Let's look up the word intergenerational in case you don't know what that means. I think I know what that means. I've used it before. Intergenerational, relating to, involving, or affecting several generations. Okay, so that screen share, random Google search. Let's Google how many Black girls molested USA. What's the statistics? I'm just looking for statistics. You know, this is a trigger for a lot of us. I don't want too much more information at the current moment. Let's see how many. How many Black girls molested? Okay, 1 out of 3. And you know, this is us. This is for the peer counseling group, and so on. Please take notes. So I'm going to say 1 out of 3. I've heard. Let's go. Let me just do that. 1 out of 3 girls molested. That's not something you can get. And it says what's in. Okay, let me read this. What's hidden in plain sight? Okay. And every time I touch the computer, I know it gets some noise. I apologize. I'll find out about it. When I play this back, hope it's not unbearable. Yeah, this is not giving me the information. I'll read a little bit of this or leave it up here for you. Child sexual abuse in the African American community. Child sexual abuse is not it certainly is not unique to African American. It's a widespread issue. Okay. So she's saying something I'm not interested in. I'm going to take over for her. I believe 1 out of 3 Black girls in America statistically are sexually assaulted when they were minors. Let's look at it like that. And I think the numbers for boys are close. And I've only personally know of 2 people. One is definitely a homosexual, and he'll be a part of my peer counseling. I'm going to tell you his name right now. He's definitely, he was almost killed by a pedophile. So there was definitely sexual contact, and he turned out to be very, 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 very homosexual, and lots of problems, all of them that you can imagine from abuse. And then there was one heterosexual man that didn't have his moment until he was well in his 40s. After being married a couple times and having kids and being heterosexual, I don't think he turned gay, but he brought up after his older brother had died that he remembered his other brother was messing with him, and it became a big ordeal, maybe as big as my ordeal. I heard about it through the grapevine. It makes you chuckle, right? Because you think, and I forget what I was going to look up. It makes you chuckle to think that somebody, a man, for example, remembers after his brother dies that his brother messed with him when they were 10 years old, and now he wants to tell everybody and he has an issue with it, right? Happens all the time. What is the permanent effects for him? This gentleman, and if you know, he knows I'm not going to name his name. He didn't make my book. He just made this one. He was working at Boeing, and was about 5 years from retirement, was really stable, had a nice home, and started drinking. And the last time I checked, he was homeless and doing tweak. 40 something, now he's well until his 50s, because I'm 50. He's old, he's an uncle age. So he started to lose his mind in his 50s after a long period of stability, because the trigger was his brother dying and that issue never being resolved, something that he held with him between the ages of 10 and late 40s. I forgot what I was going to look up. Okay, so well, let me, and if I do that when I get carried away. So about 1 out of 3 Black girls are molested, and the boys are probably whatever they say. I don't hear them. I don't know very many that have actually admitted it. But I believe, and this didn't come up as a permanent effect of child abuse, that homosexuality and other sexual problems, issues, are a direct result of a premature sexual assault. And I don't know the statistics. This is a peer counseling group. Some of you know the statistics, and you're giving me feedback because you are the prototype. When a man touches a girl, that turns her into a preferred lesbian. She may not actually live the lifestyle as a lesbian, but that turns her as someone who's interested in an alternative lifestyle, touched by a penis. When a little boy is touched by a penis, he seems to want to continue to have relationships with men. So if a girl's molested by a man, she turns into a lesbian. If a boy is molested by a man, he turns into a gay boy. Am I right? Is that the stereotype? I could be wrong. My thesis research was not in this area. Coming up as a part of that community, I recognized that I had something in common with the boys that I was a hag for, not a I want to date you hag, but we're going to be good friends hag type. And I knew there was something about them that we had in common, and it was the vulnerability and the this vicey lifestyle, dark, well beyond your years, lots of secrets, immoral activity. I recognized that that was put on them early in life, although not all of them told me they were molested. Now, some of them were 13-year-olds having relationships with grown men, so that's molestation. However, it would have appeared consensual to you. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but I do think homosexuality is a sign of permanent effects of child abuse. So go back, rewind this by how long are we in it? Rewind this by however long, and write homosexuality on the list of permanent effects of child abuse. Sociopath. Okay. My mother married a sociopath. Okay. And I didn't know he was a sociopath until after she died. So you ask yourself, and I ask myself, how, if a sociopath is really an unusual beast, monster, non-human. Okay, this girl, I don't know, too much. And how could your mother have lived with him? Because she protected him. The abuse that she knew that could become dangerous and life-altering, she saw it, and because she didn't expose him to everybody else for what he is in a title, sociopath, I would have to become his victim. If I had been his victim prior to my mother's death, one of us wouldn't have been in the picture. I don't have the heart for sociopaths. I really don't. Let me describe why I might not. They say there's a difference between psychopath and sociopath. Again, my thesis research was not in the area of, would it be forensic psychology or another type of psychology? I can't honestly tell you. I know the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath, but my impression is that the sociopath is going to lie till the cows come home and the fat lady play the paramount. And they do not want to get incarcerated or go to jail or do the time for the crime. A psychopath, conversely, is someone that's going to tell you, I'm going to find you, I want to cut your tongue out your mouth. Okay? And I want you to remember these words. I'm coming to get you. or the Charles Manson types. You know, Charles Manson is, Google him. So that's like somebody who needs to have it confirmed that he was the most dangerous son of a gun you ever crossed, and you got what you deserved, and you told you I was going to mess you up. That's a psychopath. They do it in front of witnesses. Sociopath. My experience with my stepfather after my mother died and knowing what he did to her, cowards, but also straight from hell. Never heard of anything like such a thing. Let me read these. These are first list I got. Read him like a book, verbatim. This one doesn't seem as much, but let me see. That says glibness and superficial charm, manipulative and cunning, grandiose sense of self, pathological liar, lack of remorse, shame, or guilt, shallow emotions, incapacity for love, need for stimulation. Let's read what that says. Living on the edge, verbal outbursts and physical punishments are normal. Promiscuity and gambling are common. That didn't necessarily describe them. Callousness, lack of empathy, poor behavior, controls impulsive nature. Let's read this. Rage and abuse, alternating with small expressions of love and approval, produce an addictive cycle for abuser and abused, as well as the victim believes they are all powerful, entitled to every wish, no sense of personal boundaries, no concern for the impact on others. Yet that would be early behavior problems, juvenile delinquency. He says he has a record sealed in New York State, but because he's a juvenile, gotta take my word for it. And I think I got that secondhand. I think he either told me or my mother told me. I'm not making it up. Irresponsibility, unreliability, absolutely. Promiscuous sexual behavior, infidelity, I don't know. Child sexual abuse, rape, and sexual acting out of all sorts. Wow. Lack of realistic life plan, parasitic lifestyle, definitely. Criminal or entrepreneurial versatility, changes their image as needed to avoid prosecution. Yeah, that also represents them. So we'll just roll with that one. I don't need to, excuse me, I don't need to alter any of the professionals' opinion of what a sociopath is. So let me stop right there before I forget what I'm talking about. Or I think we're about halfway done for today. So the project that I am producing, promoting, has several different elements to it. It's a media project, not sure what platform. After the media project is put out there, I would like for it to sustain and become a group project with other people who are doing peer counseling. Directly or indirectly, this can help other people who are experiencing the permanent effects of child abuse or who have, okay, child sexual assault survivors. And I unfortunately, I'm going to say be a survivor and not a victim. If you don't know the difference, then it's probably still victim mode, because there are plenty of victims. And if they're not strong in regards to what happened to them, they will not be strong in regards to what happened to them. That just doesn't make any sense. Domestic violence. This is the part of my project that I'm talking about my stepfather. Domestic violence. And then PTSD. I was diagnosed with PTSD after being a child sexual assault survivor. My mother was a child rape victim / survivor. She never got over it, but other than that, strong woman, a role model in regards to how she held up majority of the day. And then the domestic violence, let me put it to you succinctly so I don't forget. She protected a sociopath. And after she died, he would become a tragic figure in my life that he had no right to be if it wasn't for her protecting him. Now, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have articulated it anywhere near like that. I had to resolve myself to say that this monster, who I would not have had anything to deal with for 2 weeks on the record, and depending how much time we actually spent together, it might have been compacted to 2 days. I do not know what to do with a pathological liar whose goal is to make you think you're hallucinating. No, I'm sorry, you probably don't like my face or the tone of my voice, but I'm going to guarantee you I'm not the one. That wouldn't have happened to me. Unfortunately, my mother was able to sustain a relationship with this monster and protected him, so I have to put her under the category of a pedophile sympathizer. Not that he was a pedophile, but he was almost that bad. So now I'm a victim of child sexual assault, domestic violence. Right after I healed from those experiences, I pulled myself up by the bootstrap. Okay. I pulled myself up by the bootstraps, moved to California, and somebody attempts to murder me or kill me, if that's easier to swallow, on January 4th, 2014, a day I will never forget. And he was arrested for attempted murder because it was that serious. The workers' compensation case was worse than the beating. If anybody's ever been through a workers' compensation case, it was worse than the beating. I was diagnosed with PTSD. I have PTSD. I wasn't encouraged. I may have been allowed, but I wasn't encouraged to talk about all the things that happened to me prior to the attempted murder on my life, because that would have made me a broken egg. So I had a decent, supportive therapist that I only could talk to her about the event of January 4th, 2014. Workers' compensation can kiss my royal black butt at this time. They gave me $11.75, so I don't care if they have to hear about the fact that I was definitely a broken egg. Get your $11.75 back, workers' compensation. You're going to be in this media project as well. So, today I'm emphasizing the domestic violence. What Pedro Bell, my ex-stepfather, represents vis-a-vis the public record is, okay, domestic violence charges against my mother. Okay, you can find them. Did not pay child support. Okay, litigated for custody of his daughter from Florida. I was with her, taking care of her in Washington State. Okay. What we can prove or not prove is he's illiterate. I guess if you find him and ask him to spell Eisenhower or Roosevelt and he can't, then that might prove it, right? He was a foster care kid in New York City. Doesn't know who his parents are. Last time I checked, didn't know who his parents are, doesn't know his ethnicity. He told my mother he had a sister he hasn't seen since they were separated through foster care. Has a criminal record. Again, these are all things that you can confirm. These are secondhand information, but confirmable information. I'm going to stand by them. And his work history. We can go on. He's your prototypical sociopath. How come I didn't know that he was a sociopath? Because when he hollered at me, I hollered back. My mom calmed him down, sent us to our corners, and then the sociopath does what a sociopath does, becomes manipulative and charming again. I guess during the time that he was married to my mother, he grew this incredible hatred for me. And so when he was able to have access to me, oh, it was brutal, girl. It was brutal. So let's look at third-party custody. I was involved with a third-party custody. Washington State is called Green versus Bell. What is third-party custody in Washington State? Oh, is Washington State? You see how that came up? Only Washington State. Okay, so third party refers to anyone other than the biological parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and other friends and neighbors who wants to seek custody of the child. Third party or grandparent custody cases are usually a rescue action for children in danger. My mother did not leave a will, and that caused a big issue because I believe if she had left a will saying that she wanted my sister Alexandria Bell to live with me, I wouldn't have had to go through the third party custody. which was brutal. Again, he litigated from Florida, and I was in Washington State. Why did he go to Florida? Because he owed child support, and a real good time to be punished for child support is when your ex-wife is dying of terminal cancer. And he decided to not deal with possibly getting picked up and thrown to jail or whatever what else happens to people who don't want to pay child support. So he decided to leave the state when my mother was dying. And and then, you know, we'll talk more about it. We're just getting started. So if the will had been made, then maybe I would not have had to go through third-party custody to be determined. So part of me says she didn't leave the will, and this is completely guessing, because she didn't want me to be on the hook through a legal document. She didn't want to put pressure on me vis-a-vis a will. However, she asked me about 26 times because she lived for 26 months with the diagnosis. And we had conversations about once a month, you know what I mean? And she asked me after those conversations, arguments, Sean, are you going to take care of your sister after I die? So I'm going to say 26 times. She asked me and I said, yes. You don't divorce your husband for the second time when you're diagnosed with cancer. You don't divorce your husband for the second time when you get a cancer diagnosis and then ask your daughter, 23 years, her senior, your other daughter's senior, to take care of your child for 26 times during your battle, unless you know something is going on. So my mother left us a legacy, left me a legacy. Okay, I have a video dedicated to Alexandria Bell on the Scott Survivor Facebook page. I'm going to say a couple things about her here, and that's it for now. But don't be surprised. Wow, schizophrenia and child custody. Don't be surprised if I come back. Okay. Intervention to prevent child abuse, loss in mothers. Let me see what this says. Let me see. So when we ask about the permanent, I'm not going to read this. How do I explain why? Schizophrenia age. Okay, schizophrenia can occur at any age. The average age tends to be in the late teens to the early 20s for men, and the late 20s to early 30s for women. It is uncommon for schizophrenia to be diagnosed in a person younger than 12 or older than 40. Okay. I am worried about my sister. Reading that didn't help any. I made a video on the Scott Survivor Facebook page. It's dedicated to her. I have not had a relationship with my sister since she was since she moved to Florida on her 13th birthday, after being with me during the 2 years after my mother died, when I was litigating against her father 3,000 miles away, and after me basically being a second parent to her, make it third parent to her all of her life. Okay, we're going to talk about that later because it's still very heavy on my heart. So when she moved to be with the sociopath, I think she loved her father. She might still love her father. I don't know anything about her at this point. When our relationship became hit and miss, I was supposed to get custody, and I mean, not custody, visitations, court-ordered visitations, but that was ordered in Washington State. With him having full custody in Florida, it was going to be another litigation. I couldn't afford it. Not monetarily, emotionally, mentally. My mother's friend Phyllis was a financial support. She was out of the picture by this time, and he didn't honor the court-ordered visitations for me and my sister to have visits together that I initiated that would keep us into a relationship. Conversely, he prevented me from calling her. He prevented her, now you have to prove this, he prevented her from calling me. Our interaction was online, it was hit and miss. She responded sometime. There was actually a visit that was supposed to occur in 2008. He canceled at the last minute. I'm not surprised. It was probably just a setup. She called me on Mother's Day in 2008. That was the happiest day of my life that year. She sounded as if she wanted to talk to me. We've talked on the phone. I mean, keep in mind, I've been in this young person's life in her life every day of her life, and now we're separated. When I say hit and miss phone calls and contact, I'm talking about every blue moon. I'm thinking about her every day, worrying about her every day. The contact is sporadic. I remember all of them. It wasn't that many to forget. And when I talked to her, she seemed pleasant enough. She seemed, in retrospect, a little burdened. Seems a little burdened. But the correspondence, when it was free, it was pleasant. When she had an opportunity to say, I haven't called you because I haven't wanted to call you. Instead, it was, good news, this time we can talk. Well, the last time we had a correspondence, she was 18 and a half years old. It was January of 2011, and that correspondence was heartbreaking. She responded as though she regretted me. Oh, excuse me. She told me to quit cyber stalking her, which I don't think I was cyber stalking her, and that was a ferocious thing to say about your sister who's doing the best she can to find out how you are. It's what the internet is for. If I was rich and wanted to live in Florida, I'd be stalking you in person. That's how much I was worried about it. That was just not likely to happen. Thought about it on a few occasions, moving down there, but didn't happen. She basically gave me the impression that she couldn't care less about reconciling our relationship. Now, I was thinking myself, that doesn't sound like Alexandria. The writing was pristine and mature. She's a smart girl, thanks to tutoring we had together when I was taking care of her. But I said, that really doesn't sound like her. But for Pedro, and it definitely wasn't Pedro, he can't spell. So for another person to have written that note on her behalf, that's I feel ferocious. If it was her, heartbreaking. So what happened between the ages of 13 and 18? The reason I looked up the word schizophrenia is because I don't think you can become a sociopath after a certain age. And my sister was definitely not a sociopath when we left, but something happened to her. Okay. And I hope it's not as devastating as it could be, because the good Lord, I have a spirituality. Praise Yah. The good Lord knows that if something came into my life right now, He will not allow me to deal with anything that I'm not strong enough to deal with. And I've been through a lot, I've already told you, right? But I can't help but imagine what happened to my sister. So there's a couple of things that could have happened. She wasn't the young woman I thought she was, and she has her father's DNA. And once I end up cyber stalking her would be the best thing in the world for me, but I can't find her online. Once I find out she's happily married, has kids, loves life, and doesn't acknowledge me, I don't know how I would find all that out. I would still worry about her and I would still feel bad, but it's at least I know that she is having none of the permanent effects of child abuse and the domestic violence she suffered, as I've suffered, as her mother suffered at the hands of Pedro Bell. That would be fine. I can't find her online. Okay? She did not turn into a sociopath. What are the permanent effects that she may be suffering from? Could it be schizophrenia? Could it be drug abuse? Could it be sexual promiscuity? Could she be a battered woman? Those were not the things likely to happen to her if I was allowed to stay in her life or furthermore have custody of her. Of course, Biological parents deserve to have their children. If you are listening to this and you're the father that had your kid taken away from you after the mother died because you and her didn't get along, that's one thing. Are you a sociopath? Well, if you're not a sociopath, I'm not even talking about you. If you're not a sociopath, then your wife didn't really advocate for somebody else to raise the kid. Let's be honest. If there was not something the matter with you, your deceased wife or the opposite would not have put that burden, that obligation on somebody else. I've never been pregnant. So not only was I not a mother biologically, okay, I wasn't married. I got married after Alexandria. Alexandria doesn't even know about marriage. I got one on the record. Wasn't married, didn't have any children. Why would you burden your daughter to raise your daughter because you didn't live long enough to play out that dysfunctional relationship? Let's go back to the intergenerational abuse. That's a deep subject matter that I just read about today with you. That's pretty deep. Yes. Trauma runs on my mother's side of the family. Alexandria Bell is my mother's child. I'm the same age my mother was when she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. I care enough about Alexandria to reach out to her maybe for the last time and say, I'm your only other blood relative, unless you're dealing with the Scotts or Pedro found his family. I'm here for you. I will expose your father as a sociopath, as a batterer, and because he is a part of my life and he's a part of my story. Okay, so that's it for now, and I will be back and either to talk more about Green versus Bell, third-party custody out of Washington State, or we'll talk about what the PTSD is. That might be fun, huh? Okay, have a great day.